We get an episode of Chief and Kira's excellent adventure. Biddle gives a Kittle his hat, and Clint Howard has a pretty cool invisibility spell that helps him hide from the aliens. Well, the bad ones at least. Hey everybody, and welcome to the Seventh Rule with Cirroc Lofton.
Hello, hello.
We've also got our resident Star Trek Encyclopedia reader. How are you today?
You guys are not going to believe this. Deep Space Nine companion Terry Erdman. You guys are not going to believe this, but you know what I just read? You are not. It freaked me out. Did either of you know that Jeff Combs played both Brunt and Weyoun?
Yeah.
Oh
Yes.
God, I didn't know.
Impossible.
That. But he looked so different.
Very different.
He transformed himself.
How? His head was so huge as Brunt, and his head was so small as Weyoun.
Limitless talent. By the way, everybody, that's Ira Steven Behr, writer of Deep Space Nine, who we are extremely fortunate to have. Thank you so much for joining us again, Ira.
Hello, guys. Hello, everyone. Studio audience. Hello. Hey.
Not just writer. Don't forget. Executive producer. That's the top.
Everything.
Big dog. It's the big dog.
Can we see the studio audience? Can you have a shot of the...
We'll insert that. We'll insert the studio audience in post.
Of course, I will take questions from them if they want.
There they are. There's
Hey,
the studio
guys.
audience.
Oh, there they are. Oh, wow. I'm in two places at once. It's amazing.
Oh, wait. There's Melissa. There's Aaron.
Lisa.
Oh, yeah. Aaron's got his classic face right
There's Cirroc.
Yeah.
there.
Okay,
Always.
not the wasting. Let's
get into this episode. Past Tense 2.
Past Tense 2.
Yes. Directed by Jonathan Frakes. And actually, right off the bat, I want to ask you a question about two-part episodes that you split up into two different directors. Is there a reason for that? Because Reza did the first part of this. We have Jonathan Frakes doing the second part. Is that because they're already scheduled up on the slate, or you just want to switch it up?
Well, it's partly, the 26 episode dilemma that it's such a fast moving train that it's difficult to allow a director to be prepping two episodes at once, just the schedule. When you block shoot stuff like they do now on so many shows, like we did on Outlander, it's a lot easier if you want a director to do two episodes back to back. But it was just impossible. So it was just the roll of the dice.
Okay, so it's about preparation beforehand. You can't overload the guy doing this week's work with next week's work.
Not when you're doing 7-day shows.
Right. Okay. That's fair enough. That's fair enough. Jonathan Frakes has, I think, directed more episodes of Star Trek than anybody, if you count all of the shows.
Well, by now, probably. I know, David Livingston. David Livingston did a bunch too, but.
Right. There are a couple people that really directed a ton in the first 2 or 3 seasons of Deep Space Nine as well. Even Avery did a good handful, but you're right that Jonathan seems to have directed the most different series, it seems.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. I wanted to bring up, because, when I was watching the replay of this episode, or the first play, but they showed the replay of what happened last week. And one of the things that came up was this word smart boy. And I just wanted to ask, good boy, smart boy, new boy, right, new boy.
It's a dangerous term, man.
And I just, it is a...
Well, come on, Cirroc, you know what it was about. You don't have to ask that question.
Yeah, but it was just what I like about it, and what I really like about Frank Military playing this BC character, is that he plays that so well. He hits that boy really hard, and he actually, to me, brings out some of the best in Avery's performance that I've seen up until this point, because Avery really reacts to his attitudes, and I like the toughness that Sisko brings in this episode. Is that something that you wanted emphasized, and that's why you use that language?
Well, yeah, definitely. It's the language we could obviously get away with at that time. And either people understood the code or they did not understand the code. But yeah, I think that we knew that at that situation, which was season 3, getting Avery out of uniform and off the station in a situation that was fraught with peril, we thought we were going to get some good stuff out of him. And as I mentioned last week, just by the roll of the dice, we got a lot of good actors surrounding him. And Avery always, I think enjoyed himself more when he was up against, solid actors.
I think so, yeah. And also just being challenged and confronted. So the aspect of questioning his authority or, questioning even his presence in the room really activates his response to be tougher and assert himself more, which is something that I enjoyed watching from his performance.
Well, as I mentioned last week, I was down on the set when I saw Avery, like really happy, like really he came over to me with this big smile on his face, and it wasn't something about it wasn't it wasn't something psychological, which was a lot of the time with Avery when he was trying to make a point with a smile. This was just an emotional smile. And it's the scene where he starts to rough up Ben, when him and Ben had that confrontation where he's pulling Ben around. And when they did the rehearsal, because Dick Miller, who played Ben, was, he was in his early 60s then, but he was a tough guy. So and he was a very experienced actor. So whatever Avery did, Dick was going to go with it. And when they did that rehearsal, and they did the whole scene, throwing him one way, and they have the dialogue, and then he throws him on the other side, and then, Ben talks about how he feels about the people in the sanctuary district. After that rehearsal, Avery came up to me and said, which he very rarely does, and he pointed to Dick and he said, "That was good. Did you see that? That was a good moment." And it really was a great moment. And unfortunately, or not unfortunately, but the way it was edited, which was, instead of keeping the tension playing through, they chopped it up into these close-up shots, and it lost some of the heat, I felt. It didn't sustain the heat. But that's one of the problems I had a lot of times with Star Trek back then. I mean, we didn't have any say over editing. That was Rick's domain, and it was only at the very end that he allowed me to have some kind of a say on the cuts. And a lot of times I would have edited the show differently.
These little these cuts and all that, it does take away the intensity of, say, like one long, hard scene. Do you think that they did that deliberately because they said, look, Star Trek's not that intense? Was it like a branding thing, do you think?
I think it was a safe thing to do. I think it was old school television, how they shot, like I used to say, it's bonanza TV. We're shooting stuff like they were shooting in 1960, and it's, we weren't the only show, don't get me wrong. But later on, I think we were able to take more chances, though we could never do handheld. We could never really get into, modern filmmaking. It had to be classical. Star Trek was classical. And I think it often hurt the show. Not that scene didn't work, but I saw what it could have been, and that level of intensity, I think, would have been nice all through the show. The final shootout, I think it could have been cut in a different way, but so it goes.
Yeah, I mean, I understand what you mean. Having them in the two-shot would have best, showed the interaction between them and that kind of tension that they were having. But it still came across. And with Dick Miller, I mean, fantastic actor. He's got the strength in his face. He's got that weathered look, and it looks like, he really doesn't give a shit, but he kind of does. And I really like the way he keeps poking at the BC character, trying to get him to, he knows, like, you're a punk, you're a little kid, and I'm gonna keep, twisting a little knife in your back and making you feel it. So I really enjoyed the tension even between those two characters, which is, we're talking about two guest stars on a show that are, filling up the screen and delivering some amazing performances.
Yeah, that was really nice to see. That whole cast, I thought, was really strong, and I like that. The thing I did notice this time is that, having not seen it in 20 plus years, is how BC, besides the fact we never mentioned in the second episode that he killed Gabriel Bell, that's totally not talked about, because if we kept identifying him as the killer, you could only see that guy as a killer. And we were trying to show all these people in the sanctuary district are kind of victims of the place that they've been put in. So the fact that we never once say he's the guy who killed Gabriel Bell is pretty interesting. But the second thing that really shocked me is, through the whole episode, he talks a good game, but he threatens people left and right, but he does not do one negative thing, really. Avery's always, talking him down or telling him what they have to do, and he always freaking agrees with him. Even when Webb gives him a hard time, he backs down, because he's not a killer. He's not a stone killer, put it that way. He's just a guy caught up in a horrible situation, and I thought that was really interesting. He's kind of like the antagonist of the piece, but he really isn't,
Yeah, he does kind of back down and soften up when the moments come. I mean, the one time when Avery pulled the shotgun out on him and told him, you better put your weapon down. He kind of, you're thinking, how's this going to back out? Like, how are we going to get down and out of this situation? And he plays it so well. He's like, man, you ain't going to do, like, he just completely switches from being, I'm going to blow this guy's head off, to, forget about it. You guys are just messing with me. I'm tired of this. I'm out of here. And I really like that too. His performance, I thought this guy was amazing in this episode.
I thought, he's a writer. He became a writer. He worked on CSIs and stuff. I thought this guy was going to be, have a big shot at acting. I thought this guy, he had done, what was that movie based on the Hubert Selby novel, Last Exit in Brooklyn, which was, a starring role in this feature. And I thought he had the chops, but he wound up being a writer and very successful. So good on him. But he was a great BC,
Yeah, I mean, just the moments he played, even when he took his hat off and gave it to the kid, which, Ryan, you mentioned in your opening.
Yeah,
it was like, he's the guy you were at some point I was cheering for him, where in the first part of this episode, I wanted him dead, right?
You wanted Avery to knock him out.
I wanted Avery to
absolutely. That was the cool thing about the show, that he starts out as your typical villain. He's the guy, he's the troublemaker, he's the bad seed. If they could get rid of BC, everything's going to be okay. But the fact is even if they got rid of BC, nothing would be okay, because BC wasn't the problem. He's just another victim.
He's a symptom of the problem.
Right. And that's what you did well in this episode, is kind of take these smaller stories about a father and his kid and this punk gangster and the Star Trek crew there, and then made it about something bigger, which is this, homeless problem, and treating people fairly and like human beings, that, not marginalizing them and making them feel like they're outcasts. These are just people that lost their jobs or got into tough situations.
Or who need medical attention and psychiatric help, who needed a hand. That's what being a human being is, when you offer your hand to someone in need. you know, and obviously at that time, hint, hint, this time, you know, we seem to have forgotten that often. We kind of forget that you know, you can give a hand to someone, you can help people. It is possible to help people and be a human being. Robot in the background.
You know, it reminds me because in Ethiopia, we just got a new prime minister, Dr. Abiy Ahmed, and he just won the Nobel Peace Prize this last year. But what he did when he first got to Ethiopia, we had a lot of people that were living in the streets and homeless people. And he actually implemented a program where they would go and clean these people up, literally give them haircuts, give them new clothes, and take them off the streets. And it feels like it's such a small thing to do, to care about whether somebody has a haircut or clothes or shoes. But it's something we all can do. It's not that, you know, far off and that radical an idea where we have to have billions of dollars. It's literally something so simple as just talking to somebody and caring about whether they're sleeping in the gutters or not.
But you need leadership, Cirroc.
Yes.
Unfortunately, what we have learned in these last couple of years is it's not a joke. It all starts at the top. You know, the person in charge, he sets the mood. And if he's not setting the right mood, there is a dark underbelly in this country that will rise up and feel like they have the right to show off all their baser instincts and all the fouler nature, you know, angels of their nature. And you know, without leadership, people tend to wander. As
and I wanted to bring that up. I'm glad you did bring that up.
Hey, real quick, Cirroc, I just wanted to contrast that with the fact that the Ethiopian prime minister won the Nobel Peace Prize. So I just wanted to reiterate that contrast. Sorry.
Yeah, he also ended a 100-year-long war with Eritrea and made peace. Right. I mean, he did a lot of things to earn that award. But I wanted to go, and you mentioned about leadership, and one of the things I thought was interesting in this episode, one of the lines that came out when Dax was trying to get her friend to let them log into the Internet of Things. One of the things the reason that he gave for wanting to do it was great ratings, right?
Yeah.
And it just came to, you know, it's like literally great ratings is the motivation behind some of the things that we see today, and it just kind of blew my mind just to hear that.
Yeah, it surprised me too. I have to. It was like, oh yeah, we hit that.
Oh yeah, you nailed that one.
How often did you do that this episode, Ira? Where you're like, ooh, add another point on our team?
I got to tell you, when I'm watching it, I'm too busy looking at what should have been, what could have been. You know, it's hard not to say. It's what I said last time. It's like, I still do wish it was a season 5 show. I think, you know, in certain ways, it could have been a stronger episode. Not that I'm knocking it at all, but from my point of view, there were things that could have worked better.
You know, also really quickly, something I love to do when I'm watching these things is I picture it on the page. What the actors say, I picture it on the page. And oftentimes the actor, when you picture it on the page, the actor delivers it in a different way than what you would assume it would be delivered as on the page. And one of those lines today was when BC says, I guess you guys don't want to have any fun, or don't you know how to have any fun? I think Cirroc was talking about that scene. And the way he delivered that line, I was like, you know, I wonder if the writers meant that to be delivered in a different way, just the way he said it. I mean, was there ever a moment that you're watching these things where you say, huh, I didn't imagine it being said that way, but that really works well, you know, the way it was.
All the time. Well, often. I mean, the character that Clint Howard played, you know, I wrote that for Iggy Pop. That was the first time on Star Trek that I tried to get Iggy to do a role, because I thought Iggy would have had both the weirdness and a bit of the spookiness. You know, he would have been a little more dangerous. So Clint was, I think Clint is great, but at the time it was like, whoa, 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 whoa. You know, it's almost like we're suddenly having fun with homeless, you know, poor people. You know, the thing that I wish we had said was, as they were leaving, he should have said, "Do you have anything to eat?"
Yes.
That would have made that whole scene so much better for me. If we just reminded the audience that, okay, you're having this lighter moment, and yes, he's schizophrenic, and he thinks he's invisible, and can you see me? But he's got nothing, and he needs food, and he needs shelter, and I just wish we had done that. So,
wow, that's the greatness of Ira Behr, ladies and gentlemen. That line actually would have changed that entire scene and made it more poignant.
Totally.
That's why he does what he does. He knows things, and I totally agree. I totally agree with you.
Me too.
If he had just asked, you know, you guys have something to eat, it would have changed the dynamic from this crazy, rambling, kind of schizophrenic guy to, hey, this is basic human needs. This is like, I'm starving, you know, and I'd trade you this for a piece of bread any day.
A reminder of his humanity.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but, you know, at the time, getting anything done that wasn't, you know, a safe story about, you know, chronoton particles or space anomalies or stuff where there's a bad guy and good guys, and it was tough. It was tough, you know. So I understand where sometimes our attention was on this rather than on this. But watching it again, it was like, frick me, that was the moment to suddenly twist it on the audience and go, ha ha ha, you're laughing again. Not so funny. Not so funny.
Yeah. On the great episodes, which I believe that this is one of the great DS9 episodes, this two-parter. You know, some are not as good, but that doesn't mean they're bad. Just not as great. Not, you know, telling this really important story that's going to be relevant throughout time. But there's always those scenes when it's like, oh, that's the story. And to me, it was the scene with Dick Miller. With Dick Miller and Avery, when they were going at it, the scene that we were talking about, because Avery's character says something like, don't you even care about these people? And you've been around this, you see what's going on. Do you think this is fair? And I enjoyed that moment. I thought that was the highlight of the episode. Because he does soften up, and he's like, what do you want me to say? That I feel for these guys, and that I think it sucks that they're living this kind of life. And Avery's response was, that would be a start.
Yeah. That
would be a start. And I enjoyed that, because I feel like so much of what we're going through now is people refusing to admit the blatant and the obvious. Like, this is what's going on. We have a problem. And I feel like just saying that, yes, I see that as a problem, or there is a problem, is the start. Just the acknowledgement of it, you know, and that begins the dialogue to working together.
Well, I think you hit
exactly
it on the head. Yeah, I mean, the fact is, you know, and I never actually thought of it. Well, maybe I did at the time, but I haven't thought of it now, is that the person who changes, the only one who really changes throughout the entire two-parter is Ben.
Yes.
Ben is he starts out all through one, he's giving them a hard time. He's just busting their balls, and you can see that he knows he's busting their balls, but there's no reason not to, because the situation is just screwed up and you can't look at it. Because imagine if you felt for those people every day coming to work. It would be so difficult to be the person enforcing the laws that are putting these people at this kind of risk, you know, and then through this hardship. But Sisko finally gets him to look at it. And from that moment on, he is a changed man.
Right. It would really wear on you.
Metzler or whatever the guy, Chris Brenner, he'll never be a changed man. Yes, he lets her go, but that's, you know he is who he is. He's part of the ruling class, and he's never really going to get the conscience that he needs. But that little working man, you know, he's changed. Right?
He's changed.
That siren alerts us that we have to take our quick break right now.
Okay.
And we'll come right back on the seventh rule. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the seventh rule with Cirroc, Lofton, and Ira Steven Behr. We are reviewing Season 3, Episode 11, Past Tense Part 2, directed by Jonathan Frakes, written by, who knew, Ira Steven Behr.
And Echevarria.
Oh, Renee as well.
Well,
Also,
it was supposed to be Renee. You know, I wasn't planning on writing either of these two episodes, even though with Robert, I was always there with Robert. You know, that's how we worked. He was there for Jemadar. I mean, that I knew I was going to work on, but I wasn't going to work with Renee. But after he handed in this first draft, everything started to come into place. And I had all these notes about BC, the character of BC, and all these things. And he just looked at me and said, you know what? The second pass, I want you in the room and we'll do it. You have a take, because, you know, Renee was great on shows like The Visitor and Explorers. He was our softer relationship kind of guy. And usually I let the writers choose the episodes that they were going to write most of the time so that they'd feel comfortable. Every now and then something would, because of the scheduling or just where it's slotted, someone would get an episode like this where Renee was like into it, but he didn't have the same handle that he did on other stuff. So that's how I wound up getting involved, because I just had too many, you know, I just
ideas
with ideas, and he said, you know, back off. What same thing kind of happened in the show with you, Nor the Battle to the Strong. That was a show that Renee had a hard time with, and the scene with you and the soldier in the foxhole.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Oh man, I tortured the hell out of Renee on that one. It was like, go back, rewrite it, and finally I jumped in with him and we wrote it together, because it was just like, that's not what, you know. He was the one on staff who would go, do we need to do another Dominion War show? Really? Do we need to do war? He was the voice for, you know, old school Gene Roddenberry Trek, you know.
but you know, you guys were able to put in some of those old school bottle episodes within the Dominion Wars.
Absolutely.
Really well.
Of course.
Yeah, we actually, I mean, speaking of old school, we talked to the visual effects guy not too long ago, right? And he was mentioning Trials and Tribulations was like the funnest he's ever had doing something. And so, you know, just talking about mixing the old school and the new, you know.
Was that Doug Drexler?
That was Doug Drexler saying it. Didn't he say that it was the all-time fun that he's ever had?
Everyone had fun. We talked about that. God, that was that was the craziest week. Man, getting people to do work, you know, was so difficult. Nobody wanted to do a damn thing except wait for dailies to come or go down to the set. It's like, dude, we're still doing a show. You know,
we have to do the next episode. We got another episode.
Let's go down to the set, all of us. Let's just hang out. It was just hilarious. And every time you talk to, especially special effects, all those guys, all those people were out of their minds with glee, you know. Yeah. It was just, it really was like an episode of Deep Space Nine where people got infected by a happiness drug, and you know, everyone was so damn happy for that week. It's like, stop being happy, you know.
We got work to do. There was a line in this particular past tense episode where I just want to, you know, it was really good. I liked it. And that was where Sisko says, you have the face, the family, you're the guy next door. Mm-hmm. And that's what he was telling BC, you're not going to be doing the communication with the police. We need this other guy doing it.
He said they're not going to listen to somebody that looks like you or me. Right.
They needed somebody who can deliver it so that they can feel empathy, and there's no there's no way that they're gonna not receive the message from a guy like this who's a father and has the face, as Sisko said. You got the face, man. You gotta be the face. I mean, that's pretty much an obvious why you did that. But I just wanted to say that I like the line, and I like the acknowledgement of who's going to be the face of this movement and how we're going to organize together and delegate different responsibilities. You're in charge of this. You're going to be the guy on the face. I'm going to be the guy who's making sure nothing goes wrong. And I enjoyed that kind of delegation.
Well, at the time, it's funny. We were really torn at first about what was going to be the makeup of the extras we see in the sanctuary district, and should they be, there's a lot of white people in the sanctuary district, not all, but predominantly. And the reason that was we finally went that way was because we wanted to make sure that the audience didn't have the comfortable assumptions. Poor people, people of color, so it doesn't have to do with me necessarily. It's a sad thing, but it has nothing to. I don't have to worry. That's not going to happen to me. And we wanted to show. I mean, Webb was like, he looked like he should be a middle level executive at some company doing okay. He just looked that type. White collar guy. And so it was important that we showed that in the future, we're all screwed,
Right.
We're all going to be screwed. And now, that kind of works, because the truth is everyone is screwed, which is amazing, because you think that would bring us all together. That would make us all realize we're all in this together. But somehow we keep finding ways, tribal ways, to war on one another, also having to do with leadership.
Yeah, and also another thing that you inserted to kind of hit that same note was the counselor, the black woman who was, the one registering them all in.
Lee.
Lee, her character, she had a moment where she was recalling checking in a woman and, the mother, and I don't know whatever happened to her. And that was another moment, just like to let you know, like even these single mothers and just everybody was getting dragged into this joblessness and despair. I thought those were also good ways to kind of elaborate on that.
Yeah, it also showed. Sorry, go ahead, Myron.
Go ahead. No.
I was just going to say, it also continues to demonstrate that there were no villains in this. Even the people that were doing bad things, it did wear on them, subtly. Every single person that was involved in, keeping these people boxed in or oppressing them didn't start off that way. It just kind of, you turn the other cheek, 1 or 2 days in a row, and then a few years in a row, and the situation kind of gets worse and worse and worse. But that doesn't mean that, they don't feel for them, right?
Well, unless you're certifiably insane, hate is a difficult emotion to deal with. If you hate so many people, if you're consumed with hatred for the other, that's no easy way to live. You're not like hating and at the same time having like a wonderful life. Hate is consuming. Hate is a heavy, heavy drag on the body and the mind. It's fear. So think of how much they hate. Think of how fearful they really are at the same time. So it's not fun. It's not fun to live.
And hate actually scrunches up your face. Over time, you can tell people that have a hateful spirit because their face is actually morphed into an angry, hateful face, and they can't even,
sure enough,
separate themselves. But the also line that was in this, that was the same when the woman was recalling the story, Lee. Bashir says to her, "It's not your fault, that things are the way they are." And I loved her line back to him. Everybody tells himself that, and nothing ever changes.
That's my favorite line in both episodes. That's it. That's it right there. And somehow we can't break through that. As a culture, we can't break through what we know, what even the smallest of us and the most hateful of us know in the back of their mind is true. That that things can change if you do something about it. If you and it just some of us can and some of us can't. And it's amazing that here we are in 2021, 2020, and we're still dealing with the same thing. It's unreal. It's unbelievable.
Right. We're all looking ahead to 2021, though. We're all just looking for 2021 at this point. What were you saying, Cirroc? Sorry.
No, I was going to say, Ira, you say you watch the episodes and you're critical of things. You're like, I should have put a line here, or I didn't like the way this was edited. And, in all fairness, there was a few little things that I wish I could have edited out of this episode. And the thing that I didn't particularly like
Please don't say the Bill and Ted Excellent Adventure.
Yes.
Don't say that.
I wasn't a big fan of
Neither were we. And that's another thing. Now you're getting me on a soapbox.
Sorry.
It's a dangerous place to put me.
I won't.
But this is what happens, and it happened in other times in this episode too, where you needed, we had extras. We had people who couldn't speak lines in those scenes. So, and we had no time. It was all, but we had to keep the characters alive, and we had to keep the problem of, changing back the future, all the stuff that no one gives a flying about. And so they're thrown away scenes. They're thrown away scenes, and they feel like thrown away scenes. And every time you're doing scenes opposite actors who can't open their mouths because they can't say anything, it's just like, like yesterday's fish, fish. Get rid of it because it's starting to stink.
Yeah, and when you intercut it, you have this great episode. You have all these things, and I think the one officer was showing pictures of his family, and it really brought it to like, this is about family, this is about everybody. And then the Bill and Ted, as Brian puts it, the Bill and Ted moment where they're like, with the hippies and this and that. I could have done without those kind of those couple of scenes right there, and gotten more into it. But I really like the fact that you explore that the power of the internet has so much power. That I believe is something that wasn't a topic at the time.
Not at all.
The power of the internet. And in this episode, you basically have each one of the people that are in that district talking about their own story. I got laid off my job. I'm this, I'm that, and I've been here since. And telling real human stories on the internet to get people. I think there was a line that says, I think people in China are watching. I think they're watching in China. And I was just thinking, this is before people were watching in China, and we were, all on the internet. Another checkbox for, I know you didn't set out for this, but I mean, it just turned out to be the case.
But you know what I think when I look at that scene, Cirroc?
What?
I think of Henry Garcia. I think that was the guy who is. All I think about is he should have said what he said in Spanish. It should not have been. He should.
See, that's why Ira is the man. I mean,
and
once again,
these things are amazing. These things, that's what I lay in bed at night. When I watched it last night, and then afterwards, I'm lying in bed thinking, if he said it in Spanish, and we didn't have any we didn't need subtitles. If subtitles are just have him. He didn't speak for so long. Just look at his face and see what he's saying. You'll get it. The audience is smart, but it was a different time. They still.
Yeah, but to me, what matters is that that's what you think, right? So I know that you wrote it and you missed out on, the homeless guy, Clinton Howard's character saying, can I have some food? And you missed out on having the guy speak in Spanish just to show the diversity in the culture and the people. But the fact that you think that, whether it made it on screen or it never got done at all, it means somewhere in your mind that it was important to say those kinds of things. And I feel like that's what resonates when we watch the episode. I feel the importance of speaking out for this little guy who doesn't have a voice. I feel the importance of, working together to overcome and change the laws. You're literally trying to change the laws. I mean,
right.
that's the motivation, right? The restore the Federal Employment Act, and I think that even though you didn't explicitly have these particular things here and there, we know that was the overarching message behind this. We know that it was about a lower class of people in our society that we look away from, and that we want to kind of marginalize and put them in a little box so we don't have to deal with them. And you're going face at and dealing with that right away. So I still think that even though you didn't get all of the things you wanted in there, it still comes across.
I second that. It doesn't seem like Ira has got a response to that, but I second it.
No, look, I could point out all the things that I think work, just like you say, they're asking for big changes, but we say in the show, you're not going to get them, that you're not going to get them, not now anyway, maybe in the future that Avery's talking about with Sid, it'll happen, but they're going to come in and they're going to kill those people, they're going to kill Webb. Webb is going to get shot, and killed, not just BC, so yeah, there's a lot of stuff that works. There's no doubt about it. But as I always tell writers, good is never good enough. You should never be, that's for the audience to be comfortable with what you did. It's always like, we should have done better. Next time we'll do better. That's how I always try to do the show. Next time we'll do better. We're going to make a lot of mistakes, but we'll always try to learn from them. Sometimes not, and try to do better. So the shows aren't bad. I'm not knocking the shows at all. There's a part of me that thinks, we could have done this as a 3-parter easily.
I was going to ask you that. Were you satisfied with where the stories ended, or do you feel like you could have given
I think
more?
they ended fine. I just think in the middle we could have had some more fun. It could have breathed more. We could have had more interesting stuff happening with Dax's storyline, and we could have had a lot more to do with, I wanted to see Sisko and Bashir hungry. I wanted to see them uncomfortable. I wanted to see them angry. I wanted to see it really weighing on their heads. I wanted to give it more time when they found out that the police were going to come in. So it suddenly dawned on all these people that they were going to live with the fact that they were going to die soon. There was just a lot of stuff we could have played on so many levels. Webb with his family, but it's like when Avery, when we did Far Beyond the Stars, Avery's line to me, the first thing he said after we saw the finished product, he said it should have been a 2-parter, and I was so pissed at him that was his. I thought the show was so strong, and that was his thing. And I get it. It could have been. I don't think it needed it as much as this show needed more room, because I think it was a smaller story and it told what it needed to tell in that hour. Where this one, we were dealing, every time you deal, it's like dealing with a show where you're trying to introduce a new culture. Meridian, those shows that don't work because you're trying to do so much with so little time. In a way, we got the kind of outline, of what we wanted to do, and it works as an outline, but I think we could have colored in it a little stronger, is all I'm saying. It could have been more vivid.
Not to get
the audience.
Not to get too far off track, but when you just mentioned Meridian, that's something that I always notice in these one-off episodes is it seems like the toughest thing is to create a believable romance in 40 freaking minutes. Because I'm always like, within the 17th minute, we're supposed to believe that they're in love. And it's got to be, how do you create that? It's so much easier to do it over time, over, seasons, as opposed to just, the entire story arc in 40 minutes.
Yeah, well, it's also tough to create a culture in 40 minutes. And it's,
Right.
with 8 extras or 12 extras, and one set,
Yeah.
Yeah, and
not
explain their backstory and their
Yeah.
future motivations.
Yeah, it's difficult, those shows, and yet we continue to try to do them. We're, insane, but that was part of the mix. The show became so much easier on a certain level when we really could serialize it.
Mhm.
We were able to commit so much more to the characters and the story that it didn't feel like a burden, or it didn't make it more complicated. It actually made it simpler.
Now, I love when I watch these episodes and there's little gems there. There's a little just something that ties in from something else that we know or we're going to see later. And one of the things that we got in this one was a non-appearance mention of Buck Buckeye.
Yes, I knew you were going in that direction. I put that in my notes. I was like, I know where he's going.
And I just love how you guys slide Buck Buckeye in here, in a conversation. Whose idea was that one?
Well, Michael, I've said this many times, Michael killed baseball in the 20th century in his first episode that he wrote for TNG that got him.
Okay.
And Michael loved baseball. And it drove me nuts that he killed the thing he loved. And I always said, I'm bringing baseball back. I'm bringing baseball back to the 24th century. And he said, well, go ahead, do it. Go ahead. If you can do it, do it. So, it was just Buck Buckeye, keep that alive, keep Sisko's interest in baseball alive, show the passion, for it. It was all part of the master plan of bringing baseball back.
Bringing baseball back. Interesting. One of my favorite lines. Oh, I'm sorry, Brian. You wanted to talk
No,
about
I just wanted to add a little bit to that, which is, he just kind of said, oh, well, 2015, that was Buck Buckeye's rookie year. He's like, yeah, but that's all they had. Whatever.
Yeah.
I
loved it. But my favorite, I think one of my favorite lines was the last line that Sisko says, where he says, tell the people the truth about what happened here. And that was like a poignant line for me because, a lot of what we read and what we see is not the truth. And how important it is to tell the truth so that people can remember accurately and learn the lessons that are supposed to be learned.
I felt the same thing. What I felt when I watched it last night was, wow, how naive we were back then. that you could get the truth out and that everyone would hear the truth because it was the truth, that the simple fact that it's true meant that people would hear it. And now it's so much more complicated. Those people in that sanctuary district would have been demonized, and used for different purposes by so many different groups of people. It just was much more, life has become much more complicated. Every time they said that this was the event that changed everything, I thought to myself, if only we could have one event that could change everything, but somehow it never does, George Floyd, that should change everything. A million of those. Emmett Till should have changed everything, there were so many things. The Holocaust should have changed everything. Wounded Knee should have changed everything, but it, somehow.
But somehow we just go right back to it all over again.
Those shows, I guess, you need to keep telling people and reminding people. That's the thing I didn't realize at the time, that no battle is ever actually won, totally won. That you have to keep fighting those fights over and over and over again. And so these shows that at the time I thought were preaching to the converted, it was deeper than that. It was more important than that.
Yeah.
Well, we've got a couple minutes left. Sorry, Cirroc, what were you saying? Go ahead.
I was going to just mention a quick Tanzania Errol Flynn reference.
Mania.
Tasmania, yeah. Sorry.
I was hoping to talk about that too, because I don't know who that is.
Yeah, I was hoping to find out a little bit about how Errol Flynn kind of just got slipped into this thing. I guess that was BC's whole goal in life, to get to Tasmania.
Well, I think the idea was the idea of someone like Errol Flynn, who was like the cinema's most famous swashbuckler of the golden age of movies, who played Robin Hood and Captain Blood, who was always, he would always get lines. People would say to him, "You speak treason," and he would go fluently. Or, "Speak treason. I hope I'm not obscure." It's those kind of. He was larger than life. He was the real hero. He was the swashbuckling Robin Hood. And to BC, who's living such a different life, who's living where there is no heroes, and no one can come in and stop Prince John and fight for steal from the rich and give to the poor. There's no chance of that, of riding off into the sunset with Maid Marian on your arm. So that's that's what he would love to be. He would love to be that guy. He would love to live that life. Flynn was born in Tasmania, which is basically Australia, up the coast of Australia, and, lived this life, where he was, he hunted for gold in New Guinea. He was, he had a lot of fun. He got into a lot of trouble, And to someone like BC, that must have seemed like, a whole different universe. So that was what that was supposed to be. If he could get to Tasmania, he could somehow live like Errol Flynn instead of living the crappy life he was leading. Mm-hmm. But in terms of who Errol Flynn is, Ryan, you live in the age with every bit of knowledge at your fingertips. All you have to do is go online, go on YouTube. Mm-hmm. It's all there.
I'm gonna do it. I thought it was
did not know.
I thought it was another made up name. I was like, oh, that sounds like a cool name.
That's a real guy. And BC's his line following that is like, why don't you guys ask for penthouses in Singapore and silk shirts? And I love that line. I know it's kind of funny, just out of nowhere, but yeah, I really enjoyed these two episodes, and I think it's always good when you take Star Trek, which is already something that takes today's topics and themes and places it somewhere else into another place, and now you take it from that place and put it back in another place and still have these same conversations. And I just think that's clever, and it's fun to watch when you get to see the mixing of these ideas and these themes and the future and the past and the present. And it's just so much of a mix.
I'm not going to tell you my biggest disappointment production was in 7 years. Okay? Now, when they come out of the at the end of the episode, when they come out of the building, and you have this quick point of view shot of the street with bodies lying in the street, that is the one shot, I can't call it a scene, a shot that I directed in 7 years of being on Deep Space Nine.
Wow.
Now, why did I direct that shot? I will tell you. Originally, we had, and I had to fight for this, over like 100 extras, a lot of extras. Whatever the number was, said it was really a lot of people. And we had the crane. And I wanted, and I was very clear on this, the Gone with the Wind. We're talking about Gone with the Wind. Who thought we'd be doing that? The Gone with the Wind shot where you crane back and you see all the wounded soldiers, that incredible shot that goes on forever of all these mangled, maimed bodies. Well, I wanted to show all these dead people, all the people who had been shot down by the police. And again, go, holy God, that's a lot of dead people for a Star Trek episode.
Wow.
All these civilians, women, men, kids. We had this whole holding pen of extras. And I kept waiting. I said, call me when you're going to do the shot. because we only had the crane for that day. And I waited and waited. I didn't hear anything. So I went down to the set and I said, when are we shooting the shot? And it's like, oh shit, we didn't get to it. We're not doing it. It's like, we talked about this. This was like, this is the moment.
This is the moment. This is it.
Nothing. Didn't happen. I was so freaking pissed. And it was like, well, what do we do? It goes, well, tomorrow we'll give you like 15 extras, and if you want, have the time, go shoot, So I shot a whole bunch of stuff, moving extras around, but we didn't have the crane. It was just, so that ending where, I wanted to punch the audience because you're in this little room and you're thinking, oh, BC's dead and Webb is dead and that's sad and all that stuff.
Right.
But no, man, that's not what really happened. That's not why the Bell riots was such a big moment in American history. No, look at this, mofos. Look at this. Dead people.
Everywhere.
People
Thousands. Yeah.
That would have really hammered it home.
Yep.
So you directed that shot with the at the end with the bodies and everything.
That one shot.
Was that your
like an idiot?
Was that your directorial debut?
It must have been.
Nice.
And I wound up doing one scene or part of one scene on Outlander where the director got stuck. Fog. He was coming back from Wales and we had to start shooting. So I directed part of a scene until he showed up. But yes, that was my, and it was like, this is what I have. I have like people. This just isn't going to do it. But
yeah, but you covered it with the dialogue.
Of course.
There was a point in the dialogue where they said there's 10,000 people in this camp. So we knew that there was, there's a lot of people there, and they pretty sure most of them got shot.
Yeah. Then you suddenly go, geez, that would have pissed people off, maybe, if they knew that had happened.
Yeah.
So,
especially after hearing their stories on the internet and everybody got their FaceTime. Yeah.
All the way in China, even.
Even in China, yes.
If we had a studio audience, they would have laughed so hard right there at that reference to 20 minutes ago.
I can hear babies crying right now.
I know. I'm like waiting.
There they go.
There it is. That's what we're fishing for. So
happy fans. You want to keep the fans happy.
Absolutely.
So, Ira, we want to thank you for joining us. This has been, the pleasure of a lifetime. You're always so much fun to talk with and a wealth of knowledge.
Thank you.
I just want you to know that I'm ready now to sign autographs. If people want them, I'm going to be here, sitting right here. The studio audience, just come up. I'm looking forward to say hi, shaking hands, maybe even a hug.
Yes, we'll send them all your way, right?
Yeah, we'll work on it.
We'll work on that. Right. The transporter is giving us problems. But we don't have enough chronoton particles.
We never do we? Well, thanks, gents. It was a lot of fun. It was a trip down memory lane, for sure.
Thank you. Thank you.
We love having you, Ira. You're welcome back anytime, with BC or without.
With the hat or without the hat.
Oh, yeah. That was another line. You get on my nerves, and I don't like your hat.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah. Well, whatever. We love it.
That was a great one. Yeah.
Cool. Well, thanks again. And, we love having you. It's an open door for you anytime.
Seventh rule, baby.
So much.
Seventh rule of rules.
I thought you said baby. I was like, my ears perked up again. Ira's got a secret thing. Anyway, thank you all very much. There it is.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Brightens your day.
It does. It makes you laugh. It makes you laugh.
It's a 3-bodied, no-head baby. So there it is.
Exactly what it is.
A 3-bodied,
no-head. My wife, she knows how to give the very best.
Yeah, Cabbage Patch kind of, they X the idea.
Just really confused and brought down the audience. You're going to lose viewers now.
They're used to it. Anyway.
Thank you very much, Ira, though. That was very fun going down memory lane and a really fantastic two-parter that I thought, I mean, just hits the headlines as we watch television today. It's so much there that's relevant. And I think this one's going to continue to mean something to people.
Thanks. Well, that would be nice.
Yeah.
I think it will.
You.
Thank you. Thank you all so much at home for joining us. And as always, remember the seventh rule.
I'll try.
Hey, everybody, and welcome back to the seventh rule. We are still joined by Ira Steven Behr, also joined by Commanders Homer Frizzell and Marie Segal, TJ Jackson-Bey, first-timer, finally from the UK or Indiana, Timothy Baum, Rex Wood, Trek Tech Heather Jordan, Cirroc Lofton, as always. And Ira asked a very interesting question. Would you like to ask it again, or do you want me to do it?
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I'll ask it again. So, what episode are you looking forward to having Cirroc and Ryan discuss coming up? I mean, you still have, 4.5 seasons of Deep Space yet to go, and what episode are you jonesing for?
I personally, I rewatched Deep Space Nine when I got back from Afghanistan in 2013. Mm-hmm. And I watched it in a totally different light, especially season 6 and 7. And AAR 558 really hit home. And then Under a Paper Moon in the final episode. And, at the time I was in Afghanistan in combat, I was 50 years old, and I wanted to prove myself, just like Nog, being the first Ferengi, wanted to prove himself. I wasn't excited about it, gung-ho, but, a lot of people said, you're not going to survive at 50 years old. You're going to run out of steam. And honestly, my body feels it, carrying 70 pounds of gear. My knees are arthritic. But I proved myself, and I remember seeing that episode for the first time after I got back, and it really hit home, especially when people, call you a hero, and it's like, I was just doing my job, I don't feel like a hero. And so I know I'm joining this late into the whole podcast, but I really have I'm anxious about those 2 episodes.
Well, that's an answer. That's a good answer. Sure.
Yeah, absolutely. What about you, Rex A. Wood?
Well, not the copy, but the one episode that always will, because being an amputee and a double amputee, it always hits home with me. Mm-hmm. Is Paper Moon is always going to be one, because, and even though it was around Aaron Moore and things like that, as I've told you before, that episode just means a lot to me. It's one that I take into the other amputees and let them see, just because it gives them an idea of what goes on, what you go through. Even though my injury was not a war type injury, but it came from, service in the fire department. I still really, it really hits home with me. And that's the one that I can't wait till we get to. We've got a while, but it was one of Aaron's best episodes.
Yes, it was.
And it was very well written, just because it really does attack the problems with someone who becomes an amputee, and he exactly played it perfectly. I can remember going through my first one and my second one, and exactly the same kind of feeling. So that one would be definitely one.
Well, thank you both for your service, by the way. I know we say it to you, Rex, a lot, but we feel it every time you guys mention it. I think Yvette and Kat also served. Of course, we got a lot of really cool people. Yeah. Well, Homer, what are you especially looking forward to in the immediate or not so immediate future?
Well, I'm liking all of them, and I'm learning new things about all of them and different perspectives as you have different people on. But the one that comes to me is Benny Russell and Far Beyond the Stars.
Yes.
Nice. Yep. That's a good one. I can never remember if that's season 5 or season 6.
I think it's 6.
The episode?
Yeah.
6. I don't even have to look that one up. I know
Nice. Because he's got the encyclopedia. You've got
I don't even need it.
Exactly.
The
He doesn't need
companion.
it.
Great. What about you, TJ?
I'm going to steal 2 answers in 4 episodes. Well, first of all, this is one I was looking forward to. Past Tense is one of my favorite 2-parters. And DS9 had some really great 2-parters. And so I'm looking forward to Improbable Cause and the Dias Cast. And I'm looking forward to Homefront and Paradise Lost. Those are also some of my favorites. And we already done one of my other favorites, which was The Maquis.
Mm-hmm.
I'm for sure getting take out Cajun food for those episodes.
So I'm sorry, you said Improbable Cause, the Dias Cast, and what were the other 2?
Homefront and Paradise Lost.
Homefront and Paradise Lost.
That's a 2-parter, right?
Yeah.
That's a 2-parter that's not
Yeah.
named part 1 and part 2.
Right.
Just
Yeah, both of these are. Which
Okay.
I thought that was
Yeah.
clever too.
Paradise Lost Part 1 is called Homefront.
Yeah.
Why is that? Why isn't it not Homefront 1 and Homefront 2? Or
Because at that point, the show had evolved into the place where having to do 1 and 2 seemed like, retro, a step back. We didn't have to tell the audience, in big, bold letters that this is a 2-part episode in what is standalone episodes. Now, by that point, we were thinking big picture all the time. So, yeah, that became a point of pride. We didn't need,
we don't need to explain ourselves. You know what the hell you're watching.
Well, I like this.
Supposedly, they did not know. That was the thing that we kept getting drilled on. You're losing the audience. You're losing the audience. They're confused. They can't follow it. We just didn't care.
I actually liked it because we were used to the episodic where, you get a full story in an hour. And so, I'm watching and I'm waiting for the resolution and I get credits. So I just hunger for the next week, and I actually enjoyed that.
Yeah, that's what happened.
Yep.
The Dias Cast.
All right, Heather. I know you've been looking things up feverishly.
I have. There's just so many episodes. Of course, Pale Moonlight and Under a Pale Moon are big ones. But, a couple of the ones that look like they involve specifically, like, more Jake and Nog stories are, like, In the Cards, where it says Jake and Nog risk an intergalactic incident. And that looks interesting because it's a very heavily Cirroc episode, so...
There's so many soulless minions of orthodoxy in that one.
And I don't know if...
Speaking of Buckle Kai...
I can't tell if Cirroc is in the episode without actually going through it more, but Time's Orphan looks really interesting.
No, that's about Molly mostly.
Yeah, I know it's about Molly. I just didn't know if Cirroc had any. I can't remember if he had any like backstory.
I don't think I'm in that one. No.
You
Maybe
should
a
have.
non-appearance message.
I know. I'm watching it as we go. I mean, of course, I watched DS9 like when it aired, but that was like so long ago. So,
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
You don't have to tell me.
We all feel old again now.
Yeah, I know.
Well, I was very close to the age that Cirroc was on the show when it was airing. So, I mean, he's like a couple years older than me, but.
Same.
Ira, did you say me too?
Yeah. I was a child savant.
Actually, the funny thing is, I remember asking Robert Wolf about how young he was. He was young coming in on that as a writer on that show. Right out of college, I think is what we're saying. Kind of
overboard.
not that.
He was dancing around that a little bit. He was young, not quite that young, but definitely young.
He did dance around. Cirroc was like, "What were you like, early mid-20s?" And he says, "Like, around that, in the ballpark. Yeah, let's go with that."
I was 31 or 32. So
Yeah. I'm looking forward to the Explorers episode. I remember filming that. I had so much fun with Avery on that little set, and it's just one of the good memories I have just looking back. So I can't wait to see that again.
Yeah, I love. I mean, again, I haven't seen it in a long time, but I love that episode on so many levels. And again, it was one of those episodes that at the time people were scratching their heads. Why are you doing that episode? Why do you need that episode? It's so soft, it's what really happens, and it was like, nope, we're doing this episode. This is what's so beautiful about the series, is that you can do, something like past tense where the stakes are high, and you can do a show where the stakes are still high, but in a very different way. And we loved it. It was one of, obviously, we were starting the transformation of Avery and the look of Sisko, the beard. And right away, we knew that was going to be good. And just the way you guys always interacted, and Avery loved those scenes. Any chance he had to be with his son on screen was important to him, and to do a show where that was the show, basically, or a big part of the show. And that ship that they came up with, and I am not one of those people who care about, starships and the, what they have and what they can do and what they look like and where the ship's core is and whatever the hell. I have no interest in that at all. The only ship I ever cared about, the Defiant, that one I cared about, and the ship in the Explorers, because it was just so. And I remember asking Ben Robinson if they were going to do one of those Eagle Moss versions. They do all the ships. Everyone cares about whatever it is, pewter or whatever.
Yeah.
And I said, "Are you going to do one?" He goes, "No way. We could never do it. It would never stay. It would fall apart in 2 seconds. It was so fine. It was so delicate that they could never make a model of it," which I love. The ship that cannot be, cannot exist in reality. It's only in the episode. So that's kind of cool.
Wow.
And eventually, I remember reading that the scientists actually developed some type of solar sail to actually make that thing into a reality. So it actually it's not too far from existing to be able to propel yourself with solar sails. And
Yeah, and I think Ben changed his mind, and they did make it.
Really?
Oh, really?
Yeah, I've got one in the other room, I think. I think they did. Yeah, Ben, I've got one in the other room.
Ben, you lied.
Come on, Ben.
Yeah.
Homer, pull it up again for us.
Yeah, I mean, it's the small one.
Man, if you can't trust Ben Robinson,
then who can you trust?
You can't. Wow. Okay, well, I stand corrected.
Yeah.
Well, hey, I told you one thing. You got to trust the people that are telling you things, and then sometimes things happen.
Yeah.
I think he should send you one to make up for that.
Yeah, good.
Don't they use solar sails in space now too? Like for some of the controls for the satellites and stuff?
Yeah, light sail.
There's been a few tested.
Yeah.
So once again, strike one for Star Trek, making up
man.
something that actually ended up becoming real.
I know. Everybody's copying Star Trek. That's just, they're like, what's Star Trek working on right now? All right, can we do that? Not yet. Get on it.
Not the Simpsons done it. It's Star Trek done it.
Did Anne-Marie, did we get you? I don't think we got your answers.
So
we bought you a lot of time, though.
Well, the thing is, I don't like saying later on episodes because I don't want it to be like that far on in the series. But anything with Vic Fontaine, I just absolutely love, like, his way and everything. He's my favorite, and I listen to this one's from the Heart, the CD from Deep Space Nine every day. And then I'm also really excited for Worf to come on because Ryan
Way of the Warrior.
do such
That was my
Worf
answer.
impressions.
Way of the Warrior. Yeah.
So
That's your answer.
every episode. Yes, I can't wait to hear more Worf impressions from you both.
Ryan's Worf is pretty good.
Yeah,
Yes.
Way of the Warrior, and that's
Ryan, you can give us a little bit of Worf, just a tiny,
just a
tiny
taste.
bit.
Like, pretend that I'm giving you a cat to look after.
I will feed him. Right? That's the line.
There it is.
Yes, I will eat him. But that's Next Generation. But that's probably my favorite. That's my favorite Worf line, or another Next Generation one where he says, "A warrior's drink." When he's talking about prune juice.
Okay, but especially the episode where he and Dax get together. I can't remember the title, but at the end, like, Dax makes a joke about them getting together, and then Worf laughs for the first time in the whole, like, 10 years that we've seen him.
Impossible.
And it just feels so good to see Worf happy. It just warms my heart. I love that moment.
Yeah.
Do you think that when
Are you
Worf
talking about
was
the marriage episode?
No, the one they first hook up, like when actually Quark and
hook
Grosso
up.
also hook up.
Is that when they go to sickbay? Different
Yeah.
Yes.
I was just talking about that scene like yesterday.
So
It's the
wonderful.
best.
All four of them show up in sickbay together, and the doc's going,
And
Yeah,
Worf's
just don't
hair is
even
all
tell me
messed
your
up.
history of present illness.
That's good.
Well, Cirroc, did we finish your answer? I know you.
Yeah, I was Explorers. I loved the set as well. You know, I just thought the lighting was really great in it. There was Avery's wearing kind of like an African kind of cloth in his vest, which I like the wardrobe as well. So, I mean, the whole combination of the lighting, the intimate space, and the dialogue, the kind of father-son moment, that's what I'm looking forward to.
You know, coincidentally, Avery was always talking about how he was jealous of the outfits you got to wear.
I don't
Yeah,
think he said
I
that.
bet. Yeah, I'm sure he said that.
He's like,
The
I
ones
really
with the
want
best
that
cane.
onesie.
Yeah.
Yeah, that one especially.
I want to look like a bus seat.
Yeah.
Cosplaying.
Yeah.
Anyway, we're just about out of time. Speaking of cosplay, though, Homer Frizzell with the Ferengi eyes. Awesome. Nice shirt.
Available at the Teespring store.
Mhm.
That's
you.
right.
Insert plug.
Yeah. So, again, Mr. Ira Steven Behr, thank you so much for joining us and making us look
Absolutely.
good.
Thank you very much.
Good
Thank you very
talking
much.
to all of you.
A very vibrant beard.
Keep watching the skies. Or
I'm gonna try that actually.
Yeah, and I guess we have a whole ton of good episodes to look forward to. This is where it's going to start really getting really good. So
Yeah,
I'm
we
excited.
got Meridian out of the way. So
Shut up about Meridian.
I know you like that.
Oh, there are still ones that are coming up that are going to
Little speed
stop
bumps.
you in your tracks, man. You're gonna have a hard time.
No. Well, out of 170, I mean, it's okay to have.
So there might be a couple clunkers.
Yes, we clink so loud and so clear, they can hear it. You know,
All right.
Beta quadrant.
Well, thank you all very much for joining us. Homer Frizzell, Rex A. Wood, TJ Jackson-Bey, Timothy Baum. Is it Baum or Baum?
Baum.
Trek Tech. Heather Jordan, Anne Marie Segal, who's a doctor, by the way, and Cirroc Lofton, who's an actor, by the way.
Who plays a doctor?
Yeah. Thank you all very much. And as always, remember the seventh rule.